What's going on, traders? Today is the weekend. We're gonna go over like what has happened this week. This week has been interesting. Most of what happened this week has been predominantly sell-offs. Lots of tickers sold off. Lots of tickers just pop and pretty much drop. That's pretty much been the trend. So far, I think on Friday there were a couple. Each day we do have a mover, but it's important to hold on to your stop losses. I ended up not stopping out on a couple of tickers, but some of them worked out really well. We're gonna start out with Monday. The data from Monday. So I traded about two tickers: MODV, LVWR, Lira, RVYL. Let's see if we can get everything settled here so I can chat with you guys for the next hour or something. Uh, right. All right. So these are the tickers that I did trade. MODV, LVWR. Was gonna go over to MODV. MODV, pretty simple chart here. This is a daily breakout of 155. So if you don't know what a daily breakout is, it means it breaks. It actually broke this high over here around 145 and 155. So I pretty much wake up each day, look at my scanner, and the breakout was 140, 155. I was actually pretty much buying it. The way you got to do it, you got to buy it as it breaks yesterday's high or this daily breakout of 155. So the daily breakout was 150, 155. You got to buy it. I eventually did buy it as we broke this high over here, which is about 165. Bought it in 170 and then came back and I sold it for flat. That was actually the trade. MODV only after, I think, after it consolidated a bit, it went all the way to 350. Actually, for like 5 days, all this week, the stock pretty much just went a little bit up each day, a little bit up each day, a little bit up each day. I don't think I made any money on this ticker, actually. Actually, didn't make any money on this ticker because every time I was chasing it, it dumped. Every time I was chasing it, it was about to make a big move, and it pretty much dumped. That's primarily how what the strategy has been on this one. It was a tough ticker. I'll show it to you on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Moving on to the next day, I think this was Lira. So every time you have a stock gapping up, like I don't know, this the float of the stock was about 1 million. So the stock was gapping up from 5 all the way to like 35. So it was gapping up around, I don't know, like 350%. So anytime you got a stock gapping up that much, it's pretty much very hard for it to hold gains. SBET, if you guys remember, SBET was one of the tickers that I made a lot of money on that it was an unrealistic gain. And the thing about these things is that once the stock gaps up 350%, most of them, 9 out of 10 times, they're unable to hold their gains. So, while I was excited to buy this ticker, I actually bought it over here on this downtrend over here because I thought it was a good long. While it's good to buy it as a long, that doesn't mean it's going to work. You need to test it out because as bad as I was buying the downtrend, it pretty much worked. You see this wedge here? So this is a failed uptrend breakout. So you buy and then you get stopped out and then it actually just crashed. And it's very hard to recover because it actually kills all the momentum. I ended up flipping short and I covered at the end of the day because I saw if the stock on the first day of the week doesn't get going within like, I don't know, it's gapping up 350% and doesn't get going, it's the only one mover. It's very hard for it to come back, and soon enough, it only came back up to like 30 and then eventually sold off. So I held on to this one. So this is an example of a gap up short. A gap up short means a stock gapping up like 350%, something outrageous over 200%. It was around a 1 milli float, and has a positive phase three. phase three. So when a stock pretty much is gapping up with that amount of percentage, 350%, what you want to do is flip short, especially when the price action confirms. You can see here that we opened up and we didn't break the pre-market highs, and then we bounced a bit off VWAP, and you could have shorted it as it broke down here at 29. And just the strategy here is to cover it at the end of the day. That's primarily the strategy for Lira, which is gap up short. I ended up working. A bunch of traders got chopped out on this one, but that's just fine. That's just the nature of the game, and I ended up making a good profit. RVYL, this is a ticker that I pretty much it went from you can see so here that right here we have a type of ABCD pattern. We have an A, a B, a C, a D, and an E or something like that. So that means the stock went up, formed a high, formed a low, and right here form a high and form a lower low, a higher low. So you can see right here this is a place of inflection. That means the direction has changed. So it went up to a certain amount of price, went down, made a high, and then made a higher low right here. So the strategies here is buying it as it breaks this downtrend over here, which the price was actually around 130, and I was watching it and I was uncertain to buy it at 130. I eventually did chase it around 140. And it ended up being, as you can see, so here on the daily, this chart is pretty much a clean chart. That means it's not a clean chart. That means the stock had news that day. You look over here. I don't even think it had news. Did it have news? I don't even. It didn't even have news. It was just momentum. And so you can see that in the past we bounced from 60 cents up to 230, and finally we move at 10 o'clock, we push, and then we have a higher high. Then we go to 233. So, the way these things happen is that if there's nothing running, traders will find stocks to trade. Right now, we have liquidity in the market, but the liquidity comes and liquidity goes. Some tickers end up working really well, and then, it's kind of like a rinse, wash, repeat. There's certain cycles, the bull cycle, the bear cycle, the pop and drop, the gap and crap cycle, and the no market cycle. We've been in a cycle of tremendous liquidity, and traders are always going to find something to trade. It is your duty to pretty much enter at the right price, and remember this ABCD pattern because you will see this again, especially around the VWAP area. You might want to take a screenshot of that ABCD pattern, and because they happen very often. And that's about it. You made a profit. And you might wonder why I sold it at 2, why I sold it at 3, because the daily, it's a clean daily. It's a nice daily. Because, once it has a first green day, the next resistance is going to be this area here, 230. As I was buying it here and it made a new high, you can technically go back to 230. Actually, it actually did go to 230. It actually went to 233, or was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So this was the day. I'm sorry, this was the day right here. It wasn't a bounce short. I'm sorry, it wasn't a bounce short. It was this day here. So this is the day here that 6-2. Sorry, so it wasn't this day. It was this on the daily. I'm sorry. So it was a clean chart. That's all you want to know, that because there was no resistance in the back. So that's kind of like where the stock went. So you might want to remember this is a good example of a good ticker that happened in the middle of the day. You can see so that I did trade a couple of I only traded 3 tickers that day. MODV, a flat, and that MODV ended up going to 340. Lira was a gap up short, and was a good idea. And then RVYL ended up doing really well. Now we're gonna move on to Tuesday. Tuesday, obviously, you have my buys and sells over there. This is where it gets a little bit difficult because these tickers are not holding gains as much, and when they're not holding gains, you kind of just have to hold on to your stop loss and pretty much exit the position. You can see in this situation, Soar broke yesterday's high of 280 over here, and then you had a 52-week breakout of 315. Then we have a pop, it comes back, we hold this breakout area of 315, comes back, it rejects a big VWAP, and here makes a higher high. Ideally, you want to buy it when it makes a higher high, then pretty much over here. This is a nice example of a ticker that has news. And the news was, you can see so here that announces that it aircraft trading program delivered 25 million in revenue. Like I say in many of my videos, that you need to find out whether this company has good news or bad news. Obviously, 25 million in sales is good news, but whether the chart holds gains or not, it's just you got to let the chart know, and you cannot just wing it because it has good news. No matter how good the news is, the ticker can sell off. Even though it has good news, amazing news. I've seen amazing news sell off. Not a matter of whether it has good news, it's a matter of does the chart hold its gains. So this was an earnings winner, and it ended up hitting 5, the pre-market, and then we hit 370, and it actually sold all day. That back down to 240, and a couple of days later is down to $2. So because it has good earnings, 25 million does not make it a ticker you want to put your retirement account in. It's just not gonna be working. The next ticker is pretty much RSLS. As you can see, we've seen a lot of pops and drop in the market, so I actually took my time with this one. I tend not to buy it so quickly. If I see a stock popping up in the morning, I'll put it on my watch list and I'll decide how to trade it. I'll probably decide to trade it if it has a higher high on the 1 minute. This situation, it had a higher not high at 7, and I was pretty scared to buy it, and I was pretty scared to buy it at 8. I was pretty scared to buy it at the downtrend. You can see each time it gave impressive amount of range. I think the news on this one receives EU certification for product portfolio, shares jump. So this is a pretty good example of, a news pop and a news drop. You probably be noticed that we've been in a pop and drop market in which stocks are not holding gains pre-market. Some are and some are not, and you need to be able to distinguish between the two. The rule of thumb is, for me, if the stock doesn't hold the trend line and doesn't hold VWAP, it's pretty much dead. But that's not necessarily true for all tickers. If it's just below VWAP a little bit and is the only stock developing volume, it can squeeze pretty high. So the rule of thumb, if it's below VWAP, which it has been over here, it's probably not a good trade. So this is a nice example of a nice pop and drop. And what you can do with these in start shorting. I had a couple of questions in the chat. Do I really short these pops that go up 60% or 50%? I mean, in this situation, it went from 4 to 9. It went up 100%. My rule of thumb is that if the stock goes over 100%, you should attempt to short it. But if it does not go over 100%, I do not recommend to short it. I only recommend to short if it goes over 100%, and you have to be very scared to do so because they can squeeze on you. All it takes is one stock like SBET, the stock that went from $5 to 200 or $150, pretty much blow up your short trading account. But amazingly, 9 out of 10 of them do not hold their gains if they gap up in the pre-market more than 100%. This situation went from 450 to 9, actually 955, so that's 120%. So in this scenario, the short has worked very well. The next ticker, NIVF, you can see another ticker, actually 250 up to 6. You can see, and this was actually a day two continuation. So actually, the day two continuation where it broke 430. You can see this is a day two continuation. So you just pretty much plan out where the yesterday's high was, just 443. And it actually, this day two continuation happened at 5 in the morning. And I didn't really buy it because I wake up at 7. I was thinking we're gonna hold VWAP and we're gonna pop. I don't know if I took this trade long or short. I don't know. NVF, IVF. I actually didn't do anything on it. But you can see that it's a day two continuation combined with a 52-week breakout. So the more things you can combine, 52-week breakout and the day two continuation and possible news, the higher ticker is going to bounce. The higher ticker is going to go. So in this situation, 440 to 637, I think it's about, I don't know, I'm about to say 20, 30% here if I were gonna, and pretty much this is an example of a day too short. A lot of traders in the chat room were very excited to trade this one because it popped up around 7 and we pop up over VWAP. And just remember, you know, day two has 70% chance of failing. So I would not really recommend going long day two. And if you do go long on day two, you need to be very scared. Because in this situation on day two, because yesterday we were at $2, they were at $6, we hit the pre-market high resistance, which is defined by this line at 6. We completely dumped. So buying day twos is very scared thing to do. And I tried to buy it a couple times and it didn't work. I thought it's just going to continue to infinity. And I didn't short it either, but I thought about shorting it. And maybe this is a day two, this is a great example of a day two short. A lot of people get blindsided by that. This stock has, it's up, yesterday we closed at 188 and today we're gapping up at 6. So a lot of traders are excited to buy it, and you shouldn't be excited to buy it after, on day two. You should be excited to buy it on day one. And sadly, this is not a really nice candle to buy it at 188. So this is a good example of day two short and a pre-market resistance top. So like I said, day twos are time to short. Day one is time to buy. Moving on to the next ticker, in this situation, which have TRAW, it was on Tuesday. You can see so here that pharma shares are trading higher after the company published key clinical efficiency data. So I think this is probably a phase 2 or phase 3 or phase 1 of those phases. So we pop up over here. I understood that. I looked at the daily, it has resistance 263, 323. I try to draw my lines. We pop over that line. We come back. We hold this level 263, which is this area here. We reclaim VWAP. I didn't buy. I didn't buy. I didn't buy. The only actual time, actually over here, we reclaim VWAP. I don't know what time was this. It was around 7 o'clock, 7 or something. You can see so here that we in this area here we broke the downtrend, right? So this is now bullish, and then we VWAP reclaim. We held VWAP, and we actually had some traders going long here, right at VWAP, and then selling it. So I had a couple of traders going long at 330, and they sold 380s or 375 because you can as these stocks VWAP reclaim, you can buy it just above VWAP and then risk 10 cents below. So technically you're risking 10 cents to make potentially, I don't know, 70 cents. So it's a pretty much a 7 to 1 risk reward because these algos operate very strongly around this red line called VWAP. I actually ended up buying it on the dip at 360 and then I sold at 380. The stock ended up sadly selling off, and this is the reason why you do take gains, because most of them have been, we've been in a gap and crap market. That means we pop up pre-market and then we pretty much sell off. So you have to be very fast on your keys, very fast on your speed keys, and very fast on basically everything. And because I'll show you what happened Friday. Friday was a little bit much more harder day for me, which I didn't really honor my stop losses. And I ended up turning a really green day into a red day just because of two trades that I was just unfocused and I was over trading. So we're going to move on to the next ticker, MCTR. This is a nice example of an uptrending wedge pattern. A stock that consolidates over VWAP and then it breaks out. There's a couple of ingredients to have this setup here on the June 3rd. You have a stock popping up, yeah, and then building a trend. And then traders are buying on the trend line, and short sellers are selling resistance, selling resistance, selling resistance. And what it does is this pattern is pretty much like a spring. Like you can see a spring pattern like this, and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And once that spring happens, we break out of the nines, then we hit 11.5. I was actually I had a long there. I think that was my best trade. My long was at right here around 860, and then I sold it into the hold up at 11, and we had a couple of traders going in at around 850 and then selling this thing because they recognize that this is a spring pattern of a low float that is holding gains, and then we pretty much just hold it up and we sold it, and pretty much actually in the middle of the day it did the same pattern again. You can see so here that we did a pretty nice similar spring pattern, and here you have a downtrend, and soon enough we actually consolidated most of the day, and we actually went up all the way to 15. Unfreaking believable. And I was actually not here to trade this thing, but we traded in the morning, and then this ticker ended up going to 55 just because of the crazy momentum of low floaters. So this is a great opportunity to, remember some of these tickers. You draw your trend line, you see a very, spring price action, and then whether it breaks down below this trend line or better whether it breaks out above the resistance. We were betting that it broke out, and it was just pretty much a good solid trade. Don't know if I didn't really buy in the middle of the day, but it actually continued there. Moving on to the next ticker, STSS. This is a very very normal scalp, to tell you the truth. As you can see, so here we're having trouble to 750. I was buying it as soon as we broke this trend and made like 20-30 cents. Bought it here, made like 20-30 cents, and you can buy it with, say, I don't know, 1,000 shares, 2,000 shares, make a quick 200, 300, 20-30 cents, then you pretty much call it a day. Sadly, this ticker actually sold off. The news on STSS was on the 3rd. I don't know. I think it did have news. I don't know what the float is on this one, but this ticker, I don't remember what it was. There's so many tickers, so many low floats, but it's probably a float underneath 50 million if I had to guess. Because I don't really trade under 50 million. Moving on to Wednesday. Wednesday it got a little bit ugly for me because I traded two tickers and I didn't trade them correctly. You can see so here K and W. Obviously you're gonna have losses, especially after a big winning streak. I've had for the past 2 weeks pretty much been on a winning streak, and this week has been challenging due to the fact that these small caps have been selling right at the open, and there wasn't that much momentum. I was unable to adapt from a long bias trader to a short bias trader in just maybe 10 days. Um, so we're gonna look at KWM. KWM is an example of a choppy ticker. And the reason why it's choppy is because news was very strong. Um, the percent gains was around 150%, and then the float was really big, around 40 million. So these are, when a stock gaps up 150% and it's a low float underneath a million, it has many tendencies to keep going. And when a stock has a 50 million floating and gaps up 150%, it's very hard for the stock to keep going because you don't see many 200% gainers that are, they have 40, 50 million floats. You only see those if they, if they're low priced, because you don't need as much volume to move them. Like a low price, like underneath $1. So, a 40 milli float is much easier to be moved under $1 than, a $4 stock, with 40 milli float. So in my situation, I started short, and it was pretty hard to go short because, it had 40 milli shares. So I was short. I knew it was a short. And for about 5 candles, we went sideways before breaking down. And I had a great profit for a minute there, because I was short at 467, and soon enough it went all the way back down to 380. So in my situation, I was up 15%. I should have taken and covered my long, and soon enough, before I know, the stock pretty much VWAP reclaimed, squeezed some shorts out over here, and actually went nowhere. So this is an example of a very choppy ticker in which you have bullish and bearish divergences same day, very hard, and hopefully it's not going to happen too often, but it does happen, especially if you have news. The news on it was 500 million purchase agreement, which is $500 million into this 50 million float, and actually it didn't go anywhere. It had just sat there around four for the next 5 days. So that is an example of a choppy ticker. We go straight up, squeeze, we come back, and right here we had a VWAP bounce of 5 to 550, which is about $1. We try to bounce again on 5, we didn't bounce that much, and then crash back to where it came from. So it's a very nice example of a short squeeze. I had the right idea to go short. Unfortunately, I didn't take my money. And if it comes back to your short, you have to cover and either A, go long or not trade it anymore. Why I have, rules to not try to trade or overtrade a ticker once you lose on it 2 times, because sometimes the market is right and you are wrong. So there's always going to be a ticker that whoops your ass, and hopefully it's not today and not tomorrow and not for a long time, but it's going to be there. So you need to be ready to still survive and still be here and not take a huge loss on it like any other head traders have had, and they're no longer here. So in this situation, I traded this ticker poorly. I think I was pretty exhausted. I don't trade really well over exhausted. Since I trade daily, I do get exhaustion trades out. But I also, since I trade daily, I get, a lot of really home run trades. So it's actually a mix of them. So I'm not gonna like discuss like this choppy ticker, what it actually did to my, mental state. Actually, it was pretty difficult to trade, but we're gonna move on to the next one. So we have this one over here, which I pointed out to the chat room. So, in a hot market, when a stock goes up from, buck 10 to 165, and the next day in the pre-market, the stock releases news and breaks yesterday high of 165. Usually, like we've seen about 2 weeks ago, it breaks yesterday high of 165 in a hot market. As soon as we see the $3, $4, or something outrageous. In this scenario, you see, so that we did have news. A company announced proposal to acquire Asiatic something. So it did have news. So this is an example of, what are you gonna do here? Like say, you can see that the pre-market resistance is 165, and here you buy it at 165. Sadly, this happened at 7 a.m. and I did miss this 165 push. 165 up to 220. What I thought the ticker is going to do is going to consolidate above 165. I initially did have a win because it went back to 190. And I ended up just holding it like an idiot for, a loss. So, what happens is most of the time a ticker is, either A, breaks through resistance, 165, and keeps going, or B, doesn't break resistance and that 165 becomes resistance and doesn't and pretty much a wall. So that 165, we were having trouble. I thought we're gonna hold and we're gonna keep going. But in this situation, it actually ended up being a dud. It actually ended up being, a stock that didn't go. So try not to hold your losers for too long. An example of a day two continuation. And this is a very difficult trade because 2 weeks ago we were buying them and they were breaking yesterday's high of 165 and we were at $3, 380. And today that 165 level, while it broke pre-market 165 to 220, it should have dipped and we should have went right back up. But in this scenario, it did not, and you have to take your loss and you have to move on. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Just the way it goes. So moving on to the next ticker, you can see so here that I had a couple of tickers that I did trade, and I'm actually red on that day. Um, Moving on to the next ticker, MCTR. This is a nice example of a pre-market breakout right about here. You can see the high, the high, the high. The pre-market breakout was around 42. So MCTR was the ticker that we traded the day before from like 8 to like 11, and then the next day we're trading it in the 40s. So right here we had pre-market high breakout of around, I don't know, 42. I should have bought in that, sold it. We had some traders long in the morning at 37, and they were selling it as this was breaking out. But you can clearly see that this is the ideal point of the breakout point because we did hit 56. I looked at this ticker and I thought, that this might be a hold up type ticker. I actually came to the chat room and said, I saw traders long on this. I said, aren't you scared that you might get a halt? Sometimes when a stock goes up so high from 5 to 50 on no news and no nothing going on for it, sometimes the SEC halts it, and I actually been in a halt like this. And it was very uncomfortable because I actually held this halt for about 3 months, and when it opens, it lost like 80% of its value. It was very strong, very hard to. So the bias here was to go long short term, um, and try to flip it as it breaks out, and then pretty much try to short it when it breaks some sort of a trend. Oh, I actually didn't do either. I actually tried to buy it around VWAP, and then pretty much I should have shorted around 45, 40. I didn't really think it's gonna just fall off a cliff back to 5 so quickly. I tried to buy it, it didn't work, and I didn't try to short it, but I should have because now looking at it, it's at 5. It was a very easy short. So MULN is another ticker so we have seen a bunch of tickers that were very active in the aftermarket or in the midday. You had MULN going straight up here, some downtrends break over here, another downtrend break over here, another downtrend break. I actually did buy this downtrend break right here at 23 and actually was up to 26 and then it came back to 23 and I sold it. I thought it was going to go to 30, but you can see the volatility. Actually, I should have flipped short right here as we did a triple top because some of these tickers at the end of the day, since MULN rotated so much, you can see the problem here in most of my trades. I was unable to flip short. This ticker was obviously a short. This ticker was obviously a short. This ticker was, well, that was choppy. This ticker was obviously a short. You can see that MCTR was not a short. TRAW was obviously a short. You can see that about 8 out of 10 tickers ended up selling off, and they ended up selling off, especially on day two. You see, so NIVF here on day two, it ended up selling. You can see so here that SOAR just sold day one. You can see in a lot of examples that shorting on day two has worked out very well. This was the choppy ticker, and I was unable to short day two for some unknown reason, probably because I was just I don't know, I was unable to adapt to this market so quickly. And MUN, I was unable to short this one. I was still thinking bullish. And that was very sad because, we've been in a very bipolar market. Sometimes they go way higher than we think, and sometimes they pop and drop. So it's very hard for me to, know, very hard for the body to adapt, I would have to say. So moving on to, I think we're moving on to, this is another trade, STSS. We had trouble with the round number 750, spiked up 40 cents. Take that long with 1,000 shares and pretty much make a couple hundred on that breakout there, which I did. So I think we're gonna move on to what is it called? Thursday? I think this is Thursday. So moving on to Thursday. Thursday, we're gonna moving on to Thursday. So yeah, I'm starting to do actually well after that loss. I'm starting to do well. You can see MODV. This ticker was on Thursday, and again, I took a loss in it. MODV was a loss again. I buying it in the morning at 3:30. You can see that the pattern here: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday is the day MODV actually broke out there. Broke around 320. We got up to 440, and and this was the ticker that I should have held, but I did not hold it, sadly. I was actually buying it as it made a new high. Every time I was buying it as it made a new high, it just came back. It was very uncomfortable to trade this ticker. I know a couple of traders just got also stopped out, and maybe I should have had a little bit of patience. Maybe I should have rebought it. But soon enough, MODV finally broke yesterday's high of 3, and pretty much broke this 52-week breakout of 350 and squeezed. Whoever's moving it, they know exactly what they're doing, trapping longs and they're trapping shorts each time. Each time it breaks yesterday's high, it just doesn't go up by much and sells off. Each time it, breaks yesterday high, it doesn't go up by much and sells off. The only time I traded it well was actually in this first green day. Second green day, I didn't trade. Third green day, I traded this one and lost. So I lost 2 times and one big one, first one. Very difficult trade, that's for sure. Moving on to Xena, I actually traded Xena pretty well. You can see my profit in Xena has been the top mover. Actually, Xena was the only mover of the day. So when you have an only mover of the day, you have a lot of liquidity going into this one. So so we had a couple of trades here. We pop up over here and then we come back. We have a VWAP reclaim. I buy the bounce with a VWAP stop and I sell the rip. So that ended up going. And then we had a downtrend break, which I ended up buying and then selling. So that worked out. And then I ended up, and we had some traders buying it around VWAP and then sold the pop. And then we came back and then we just held this level of 450. Soon enough, right here, it popped up, it came back, and right here, you got to figure out whether to go short or you go long. Right here, you had an opening range breakout. I don't really like buying things at 9:30 or 9:45. I like to wait until it gives me a high and a low, and then pretty much have it tell me which direction is going to go. So in this situation, we broke on the upside. This is opening range breakout right here. And then below this level, it's an opening range breakdown. So that's a short. So we ended up going straight higher. I ended up buying. I actually got chopped out and I actually didn't make that much money. But I actually bought it again at 6 and sold it at 650. So you can see 645 there. I bought it at 645, bought it here. So technically I had about 3 green trades and 1 small gain. Was the small gain because it was choppy. For about 7 candles, it just went choppy. This was a green trade, green trade, green trade. So I had pretty green trades overall in it. The news on Xena was announced a drone service aimed to target strategic partnership, launches drone as a service for U.S. defense and government agencies So this is a pretty heavy news, pretty good news. When you have the U.S. defense and government agencies, good news. But that doesn't mean it's gonna keep going. We've seen news in the past. We've seen news like we had a $25 million, earnings winner and straight down. So it's not what the news is, what the chart does with that news. On this situation, we had a lot of volume and it held and we went. A couple other tickers to mention on Thursday, RVYL. Over here, we had a downtrend break right about here. So I actually bought it around 7 a.m. Was trying to trade it a bunch of times. And then over here, we had a clean downtrend break. I didn't really buy this clean downtrend break. I should have did buy it because after that, it spiked up all the way to pre-market high, and it actually halted up and came back to VWAP. So we've seen a very impressive, uh, impressive price action on RVYL. Just very impressive. That was on Thursday, I think. Um, so pretty much MODV crazy, Xena crazy. This one I didn't trade at all. TGL was another example. So like I said before, stocks are like brothers and sisters. If one day two continuation doesn't work, there's going to be another day two continuation that doesn't work at all. We can see in this scenario that, yesterday we closed at, I don't know, 150, and then we had news. Actually, we didn't have any news. It just popped up. Actually, did we have news? No, we did not. The stock pops up to yesterday's high, which is around depicted by this yellow line of 206, and I thought we are going to keep going. But in this situation, this was a day two continuation without any news. So it was just a pop into yesterday's resistance. What I like about day two continuation is that, once they have news and once it breaks yesterday's high, we can spike up really big. But in this scenario, it became day two continuation resistance. Day two yesterday's high resistance. So, I only bought it like very small because it didn't have news. But if it did have news, I would have probably bought more because the next resistance would have been 250 and then so forth and so forth. The next ticker is ZJK. You can clearly see. So we had a couple. So I did buy this, so we have the same thing going on here. A pop, a down, a pop, a lower, a higher low over here, and a breakout. So this would be your point of buy around 750. I actually bought it around 760 and I sold it at 850. You can see the same pattern again. You have the A, B, C, D, E. This is the breakout point of this candle here. Then we pop up to 850. So this is a very normal pattern that I would suggest you learn, ABCD pattern. See this many, many, many times. This situation, we broke this candle over here, this high of 742, and then we spiked up to 850. So that would be like 20% there. Actually only $1. I'm sorry, 750 to 850 is $1. So that's 10%. That is a pretty good base hit. Made money on ZJK there. So you can see that 777 was my fill, and then exit was 860. RVYL I traded in the morning. The next ticker is Xena, and then MODV again, and MULN. There we go. And STSS. That was on the 5th. So I think we're moving on the 6th. So this is where things got a little bit out of hand. Obviously, I have a big red day here, and it's actually, it's not that big of a red day. It's just, I have one big loss. Actually, I have two big losses. So sometimes I don't hold my stops and I oversize. So this would be a pretty much a interesting red day where things don't happen the way I would expect them to. I only technically had two big winners and I had three big losers. So it was more of a loss day. It's just the nature of thing. No matter how hard you fight, you're just gonna lose by possibly A, over trading, or B, just not holding your stops. I actually did trade 2, 3 tickers that I was not supposed to trade them. And you can see, so BJDX is a ticker that pretty much just sold right at 7 a.m. It didn't hold VWAP, it didn't hold trend. As soon as 7 a.m. rang, they pretty much sold it back down to 170, which was very brutal, to tell you the truth. To wake up at 7 a.m. and to see the top gainer, BJDX up 70%, and it sells off for no apparent reason, just because the traders are not buying it. They basically gapped it up 70%, and they just sold it off. So that's a very good indication that the momentum of these micro floats has shifted, or they're profiting from the liquidity. So it was very, very mean of them to just open it up at 7 and sell it back down. I tried it multiple times and eventually hit my max loss. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But I actually held one of my positions to 230, and it was just ugly to be holding that position. So always cut your losses, just make sure you have a maximum loss per ticker, because you will exceed one day this loss. You still want to be in the game, not if you mess up. That's just the way it is. VEE is another ticker that I actually lost money on. I didn't lose that much money. You had a downtrend break right about here. I chased it up at 327, and I sell it immediately because it came back to my entry. But this down, we had traders. You have a push, consolidation, and then higher high over here. Higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. You have a wedge pattern breakout around 305 and went to 340 and then sell up. You can see that, multiple of these tickers have been gap up shorts. Most of these pop and drops have been gap up shorts in a pre-market. And I don't know if you want to short them or not, but in this situation, this chart was crappy. A definition of a crappy chart is this. You see massive wicks, and every time it pretty much it gaps up, it sells off. That's an example of a crappy chart. And I don't even remember what the news was. Let's see, the 6-6. It didn't even have news. Announced that it will acquire Bahama Boat Works, terms not disclosed. So this is a very good example of terms not disclosed. So whenever a company has news that terms are not disclosed, they will start selling their stock. This is a very good example of a stock selling off. I've seen tons of news out there, and when you have a stock that they don't have the terms disclosed, most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, pretty much sells off. I should have pretty much taken this thing short and not have bought it, because a gap up short, or a stock with news that with terms not disclosed is most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, a short. And this scenario, it was a short. Sure enough, it was. I should have shorted. I was unable to flip short on a lot of these tickers. You can see so here. I ended up making money on the long side. I traded very, with A plus, B plus stars, most of these tickers. But I was unable to flip short so quickly. A lot of these tickers have been doing pops and drops, and they've been selling off. See Vero here, just right at the gate, just sold off straight out, and Vero was quite active in the pre-market. The news was purchase agreement, purchase agreement or something. Purchase agreement with Meta Robotics. I did trade this one. I traded it as we broke this trend right here. You see, so a pop, a channel, and then pretty much a higher high right here. So this is a channel, and then a higher high right here. So I bought this higher high right here, and I held because it was above VWAP, and then we pop up to 440. That was probably the best trade, and then I bought it again at VWAP because it was just on the trend line. Pop up 20 cents, and that was a trade, and then it pretty much was the backside after that. After we didn't hold this trend line, we were on the backside of it. Vero, and then we had another ticker, WeBuy. WeBuy ended up making money. Like one time I bought this, pre-market breakout. You can see so here that in the morning around 7 and 8:30, we had a pre-market breakout of 7. So I buy it at like 7:20 and I sell it too quickly at 7:70. It hits 8:20, so I should have held on to 8:50. I tried to buy the dip at around 7 over VWAP, around 7:30, and then I got stopped out at 7 for just not having patience, and then pretty much we had a breakout of 850. I buy the 850, I sell at 920, and then we hit 998. I don't know. That was like this. These were the two stocks that actually traded really well. They were liquid and they were giving me a good entry and good exit. But the other tickers you can see so here, V, I ended up stopping out. This ticker, BJDX, I ended up holding it way too long. And now we're gonna go on with a couple of tickers that I just pretty much got smoked on. A ticker that I got smoked on was KNW. KNW, I initially was green on this ticker because we saw it on the gap scanner and we saw it on the pre-market and we saw the news and the news was decent. We had 200% acquisition deal with Bitcoin. So this was, had Bitcoin in it. So they're trying to put some funds in their um, Bitcoin strategy, and it just broke a dollar, and in like 1 minute candles, we hit 177. So I buy the dip 144, I'm up to 177, and then I say that my stop from 140 is gonna be VWAP, and I end up holding it. So sometimes I just don't hold my stops, and from a winning trade, it turns into a losing trade. You do really have to. I think in this scenario, I overtraded because I traded 7 tickers. I did manage to buy 140, and I didn't really sell it at 170. We had a lot of traders that traded 140 to 170, because that's 20%, and then it pretty much just fell off a cliff. Then it came back in the middle of the day. That's crazy, 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 crazy volatility. But just make sure you take your losses and take your stops and live to trade another day. And I actually gotten smoked in DTCK. DTCK is something like this. I mean, the ticker also had news. You could see that another ticker had news. The company announced approval of 300 million investment and probably 30 million investment in Bitcoin. So a lot of these tickers have been releasing news that they're investing in Bitcoin, and the stocks have been popping and they have been dropping. So that's primarily what these stocks are doing. They're investing a lot of money into Bitcoin, and the stocks are pretty much just popping and dropping. You can see this scenario, we actually hit a higher high by 1 penny, and we have a halt down because we were on this downtrend. Downtrend. So this is an example of a crappy chart. And the news was not that good. I mean, 30 million in Bitcoin is not that great of a news. Probably if I had to do it, probably around 1 out of 5 eggs would be, the news article. When you have news that, 30 million, not a lot of money. Like we've seen tickers that had 500 million, like $500 million investment or something like that. So 30 million is not really a big deal. That's about it. I've got pretty smoked on Friday. I'm actually red on Friday, but there's not something I cannot recover from. Primarily, my problems are not holding my stops and not and pretty much over trading tickers that I should not have, not being able to flip short. This week has been pretty interesting. We had Monday, I think it was like a 4K. Tuesday, it was up like 1K. Wednesday, it was just a loss. Thursday, so we have like, I don't know, 4, 1. kind of like a loss, a 5, and then we have like, I don't know, what's that, around a 4, and then a loss around a 5. So been very difficult week a little bit for me because I was unable to flip short. A lot of these tickers ended up just selling off, but I'm sure I will bounce back next week by trading less and focusing more on A plus setups and not being scared to flip short on a lot of them because you know a lot of them were not holding gains. A lot of them were gapping up in the morning, and they were just selling off. That's primarily what they were doing. They were just gapping up, selling off, and they were releasing news about Bitcoin, 30 million, whatever million. They were just choppy, and they were pretty hard to trade this week. If you were a long bias trader, if you were a short bias trader, I'm sure most of the trades as a short bias trader, you can see most of them sold off. On Friday, all of them sold off. On Thursday, Xena is the only ticker that actually went. Every other ticker, every other ticker in the pre-market ended up selling off. Um, and then on Wednesday you have shorts. You have day two. So the primary things you want to get from this amazing live stream is, not being the primary things you want to get from this amazing live stream is let's see, primarily things we can get from this live stream is day twos are usually shorts. Day two are shorts. There we go. So whenever you see a stock that's, what is day two, like, $2 to like $5 or, $10 to something, there's a 70% win rate. Unless it's the first one that's running. Unless it's the first one that's running. So usually the first one, like SBET, example SBET. Everybody remembers that one. And we're in a gap and crap market. Gap and crap market, stocks don't hold gains. Stocks don't hold gains. Take 10% wins. That's something you might want to day two or shorts, gap and crap market. Weak news. There's a lot of tickers that have weak news. There you go. Day two are shorts. They're in a gap up market. Gap up market. So most of them will not hold gains. Weak news. Terms not disclosed. Sell off. That's a ticker that you might want to hit short. Terms not disclosed. 30 million investment in Bitcoin. Bogus. Sell-offs. The only tickers that really held gains. Strong news was like. Strong news was like. Strong news. Positive. Phase 3, and that could sell off as well. You do need, a very strong float and very positive, like a $5 billion investment. That's a strong news. $500 million investment. Or like weak news. Firms not disclosed. 30 million investment. Positive phase 3. We've been in a very gap and crap market. So these are like the key things to get from this. You have to be able to flip short on a lot of these tickers because they were just having some sort of news and they're just turning up the other way. So try not to short 30%, 50, if you see them over 100%, I will potentially try to short them, but I have a lot of pops and drops this week. That's kind of like the week. I'm actually been, up and up and down this week. It's not been, you can look at my, P&L, Monday green, Tuesday green, Wednesday I got chopped out, Thursday green, and Friday is just, I had two big winners and then like, two or three, big losers. So it's very emotionally draining, this profession. Make sure you take your time and you hold your stops and don't be a degenerate gambler like I am sometimes. And learn from my mistakes and learn to sometimes doing less, you will make more. I have a tendency to do more than I should, and I can see that in my numbers that sometimes I finish the day red, even though I did a lot of things right and just a few things wrong. So we're at the 1 hour mark. I'll see you all in my next video. Make sure you subscribe, and make sure you also watch my next week. My YouTube channel is gonna get on unrestricted. I'll be able to live stream. Make sure you sign up to Unusual Day Trader YouTube channel where I'll be live streaming, and make sure you sign up to my Unusual Day Trader clips, and then make sure you sign up to my Unusual Day Trader on what is it, on Rumble, where I post these weekly recaps because sadly YouTube has flagged some of my videos due to the information being very damaging, because it can be damaging if you don't take your stops and you follow rules. Other than that, see you all in my next video, and I'll see you all Friday. I'll see you all Monday at 9 a.m.